don't have all the veterans stand up in the room for a round of applause. Don't do it.
So Ben, is that even like on Veterans Day, like this Sunday around Veterans Day too? Because I'm going for a lot of churches here. A lot of churches, sometimes we, that.
I think Veterans Day is fine. Veterans Day is fine.
Okay.
Veterans Day is okay. I think we maybe one day we'll tackle the word veteran and we'll give you the Disney definition, and then I'll give you the real world definition because they're different. But I think Veterans Day is fine. Even Armed Forces Day is fine. This is the day that you don't, because the people who should be standing can't. You're listening to the Dad to Dad podcast, a podcast where we just talk as dads.
All right, welcome back to Dad with Ryan and Ben. We hope you had a meaningful Memorial Day. Today we're diving into what Memorial Day means, its significance, and how we can apply its lessons to our everyday lives from a Christian perspective. Hey Ben, how was your Memorial Day?
My Memorial Day was is pretty reflective. To be honest, we spent time honoring those who have served and fallen. We went to a local parade. We had some conversations about what Memorial Day is with our kids, about its importance. What about you? What'd you do?
Yeah, so same kind of thing, man. I was talking with my kids about it because there's 3 really specific days that have to deal with a lot of this, and I explained to my boys at least a little bit of what different days they are. And so one of those, Armed Force Day, we're honoring those that are in uniform. We remember Veterans Day of those that have worn the uniform and have come home, and maybe they've retired, they've gotten out, all those different kind of things. And we honor still those veterans that have served. But Memorial Day, we honor those that, and I was telling my boys, we honor those that died in uniform and through all the different things. And so it was just an easier way for my boys to understand the 2 different dynamics. But then, we still had to cook it out at my parents' house, and the kids got out to just really, they had a water slide and just different things. And some of those kind of, that's right, man. Thank you to my aunt and my uncle. They purchased that for the boys. And they had a blast. And so that's what we did, but it was really awesome. One thing my son said, though, he said, all these wars, couldn't people just get together and talk and so you don't have to fight? I'm like, okay.
Yeah, very possible. So Memorial Day is a federal holiday, and it's, like you said, it's honoring and mourning the military personnel who have died in their duties when serving overseas. Yeah. Unfortunately, it happens here stateside as well. Accidents do happen. Helicopter crashes out in California seem to be too often. And it's not just always a war time incident. It happens all the time. But it's really, like we talked about, it's a day to sit and reflect on the sacrifices made by all of those people who gave the ultimate sacrifice. And what a lot of people don't know is it's less than 1% of the whole entire U.S. population.
Wow. And it's amazing to think about where it started from, the Civil War. And as we and it started, the original day was called Decoration Day, so they were remembering different people. It evolved over the years into now, as we know it, as Memorial Day, observing on the last Monday of May. How was your observance of that Memorial Day changed over the years?
I'm going to be completely honest with you. Memorial Day used to be one day closer to getting out of school because let's be real, the pool opening Memorial Day. Something about wearing white that I don't, or is that one of the holidays, something about wearing attire. But really, it didn't mean much. It was just one of those days where you knew that there were going to be really good sales going on at the outlet malls. But and there still are, from what I'm told, as I've gotten older, it's really become more about a reflection, and especially for myself, serving. It hits a little bit more home. It sits in our house on a place that I want my kids to know, hey, Memorial Day is really to stop whatever we're doing in the world and be thankful for those that were brave enough to go out and give their life for our freedoms, who sacrificed for our freedom.
Yeah, and that's the same thing here. The big difference to me about some of these kind of things is, as Ben, you have served, and my dad has also served. And talking with him a little bit today about this whole entire topic, man, it was really weird to think, because I honor all those that have died for us, but for me, sometimes I don't have a particular face sometimes that I can see, that I remember that someone that has died. Unlike my dad, yourself, knowing guys that gave that ultimate sacrifice, it hits a little bit different for you guys than it does me. And I still want to be honoring, and I still want to be compassionate to all those, but it hits differently, just because you're putting faces, you're remembering some of your buddies, some of your friends that have gone on from that. And so it's really important to teach our kids these same kind of things, and honoring those that have gave the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms.
And it's, it's not even just putting a face to it. It's people who have worn the boots before.
Yeah.
And you think about this in ministry, even like there are pastors who have gone before you who have kind of led the trail, and there are soldiers who have gone before myself. And I'm sorry to the Marines, I call them soldiers because I'm in the Army and Navy. I just so but in all seriousness, like, it's just, there are people who have gone before you, and myself, I have gone overseas, and there's no feeling like getting on a plane to go to a war zone, because what happens is you just emotionally disconnect. So the state of mind that those guys were in, and unfortunately they never got to come home. So it's really important on days like today, as communities. It was cool in the town that we live in, they had a parade, and I think that's really important. The Legion is strong here, the VFW is strong here where we live. Like, the veteran community where we live is huge. They all go up to the cemetery and read the list of names of people who have fallen. The high school did the Murph challenge this morning, which is you know what? I'm not even going to spill what it is, because it's worth it for you to go and look it up. Look up what the Murph challenge is. It's based off of a SEAL who passed away, and a workout that he did. And it's grueling, but I'll tell you what, it's one of those things, like, you want to be like him. And, it's days like today that we can really come together as a community, to reflect as a community, support one another, because there are people that you're going to be standing beside at these parades or whatever, where the day means more. And it's, time for personal reflection of, what does it mean to you that somebody was willing to do that for you?
Yeah. And I really feel the importance of all these kind of things is maybe going to some of these sites, going to some of these memorial sites, especially. So my dad served in the Navy. So when Ben looks at that and he says Navy, my dad did 20 years in the Navy. But when we look at different things, like my dad, when my dad passes away, we're putting him at the Ohio Western Reserve National Cemetery in Wadsworth. And I was driving by there one day, and I had my boys with me, and I took them there, and they're like, everything is in a proper spot. I said, that's because that's the military. That's, and it was just really cool to see my kids seeing some of those kind of things, some of those graves and those headstones, and, asking the different questions of, well, what does that one mean? Or what does that mean on the different symbols of different things that they've gone through. And so, taking our kids to some of those kind of things is very important, to see them and passing on, remembering those that have fought and died for us.
I 100% agree. Like, you driving by a place like that, and visiting these memorials, that's how we get our kids educated on the importance of what Memorial Day is. And seeing the flags on the graves, we're making meaningful experiences with our children, and it's more than just a day off from whatever else is going on. It's more than just a sale at whatever store there is.
A biggest thing too, and I want to piggyback right on that. For our kids, it's more than just the day off of school, and that's a big part there. But let's shift to a Christian's perspective
Of
on
course.
how Christians view Memorial Day through the lens of their faith.
Coming from the pastor, right?
That's right, coming from the pastor.
Coming from the pastor. All right, listen, Memorial Day, I think it reminds us a lot of the ultimate sacrifice of Christ. I know a ton of people talk about this, and it probably gets used in every prayer circle today or on Memorial Day that you can imagine. But just as soldiers lay down their lives for freedom, Jesus did the same thing for you, for our eternal freedom, not our earthly freedom, our eternal freedom. And I think that's a pretty powerful parallel.
Exactly. So, what biblical principles can we apply to observing of Memorial Day?
All right, so you're gonna put me on the spot. So
I sure am.
so let's do principle.
Listen, if you don't know, pastors ask questions. Like that's what we do.
So how about love, sacrifice? What's that, Brandon? Like gratitude? I almost called it granditude. Gratitude. I think it's John 15:13 says, "Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." It's about recognizing the love and sacrifice of others and reflecting that in our own lives.
So, speaking of sacrifice, how does the sacrifice soldiers reflect the ultimate sacrifice made by Jesus Christ?
So how does a soldier sacrifice parallel? I, listen, soldiers and myself, we live for earthly freedom, right? I think we all strive for that. And Jesus sacrificed his life for spiritual freedom. I honestly think that they're both acts and forms of love and service, and the highest. We're not going to find many people that are willing to die for you and I. There's a lot of people, we use that before. Oh, I'll stand in front of, but will you really? And these are guys that did it. These are people who did it. So they're not Jesus Christ. I want to make that clear. Soldiers are not, but parallel. It's the closest thing that I think that we have here in the world that we live in, that is as sacrificial of an act as you can make.
Yeah, I mean, without some of the sacrifices that these men have made, we wouldn't even be able to maybe sometimes even do something podcasts like this or different things that the freedoms that we have. So, in what way can the concept of serve and sacrifice be integrated into our daily lives as Christians?
Well, there's a church word. I think we serve others selflessly, which is what we should be doing in our churches too. Volunteering to help the local food kitchen, volunteering to help somebody get to a doctor's appointment. Listen, the volunteering doesn't have to be this grandiose thing. Sometimes volunteering to just walk somebody's mail up to their house could be the biggest deal in the world, and that goes to showing kindness.
Yeah.
It's
So
about living out these values.
Absolutely. So here's the next thing. How can you cultivate? I've got a lot of questions for you tonight, man.
Yeah.
How can we cultivate a spirit of gratitude for the freedoms and the privileges we enjoy as a result of others' sacrifices?
So I had to wrestle with this quite a bit, because this is something that I think even as somebody who served, I don't do well all the time, but it's being mindful of those who made that sacrifice and expressing thankfulness to them, and then teaching our children to appreciate and to respect that, those who serve and have served. And I'm going to say this, and this is going to rub somebody the wrong way, but it's time that I get it out, because I've been holding on to it since we started. Memorial Day is not the day to say thank you to the veterans who are still walking. It's not the day. It's just not the day. I can't tell you how many times people do this and say, thank you for your service, and I don't respond back. And then I know it comes off probably callous to them, but it's just because, listen, I'll tell you thank you tomorrow. But also know this, and maybe this is me going to go off on a little tangent here and get off track, and that's why you're a pastor, because you'll bring us back. But nobody I know enlisted to be thanked. I don't know anybody who enlisted to be thanked. Everybody I know, every single person I know who enlisted, did it because they love you and care about you and their family that much. And I know in a world that we live in, that is a crazy concept. People don't get that. But I did not join for you to say thank you. I did not join for the 10% off at Lowe's and Home Depot. I joined so you can express whatever you need to express and live according to our Constitution. That is why I did it.
And that's very, very meaningful coming right from a veteran on those kind of things. But man, there's other practical ways to show appreciation for those sacrifices, both on Memorial Day and throughout the year. And here's something that I've seen my dad do, and I've picked up from that, because sometimes when you see your father do something, you're going to instill that into them. And man, I'll tell you, my dad will, if he goes out to eat somewhere and he sees a veteran guy maybe wearing a hat or something, man, he'll just go and he'll just pay for that meal. Sometimes not even talking to him, just I'm going to cover his meal. And so when that comes, it's like, hey, someone, just tell them thank you for your service. And something that I've picked up on too, man, if I see somebody out and there's a way I can pay for someone's meal, that's a great way to say thank you as well.
Say thank you on the days that it's not expected.
I
mean, not
right.
To but say thank you on the days that it's not to be expected, because I expect you to do it 2 days. I expect that. Catch me off guard one day and say it and find out how uncomfortable it really makes me. But no, try it. Try it. Tomorrow, say thank you.
That's right. But there's plenty of other ways also to help what we've talked about, supporting some veterans organizations, participating in community services. Yes. Like we said, thanking veterans personally. Small acts of kindness, they go a very, very long way. So how can we balance our faith with a sense of patriotism?
Reeling me back in, huh?
I sure am.
I think it's, and this is going to sound unpatriotic as much as patriotic I am, but we've got to remember where our ultimate allegiance is, right? And that is to God. That is God with a capital G. And while being thankful and respectful to the people that he's created, it's about honoring the place where we live in ways that align with our Christian values.
Yeah. So are there potential conflicts between Christian values and national pride, and how can we navigate that?
Well, all right, let's go there for a minute.
I got a lot of questions tonight, Ben.
Well, let's be real, because this is true right now. This is what's happening in the world, and we see it a lot. And patriotism can sometimes overshadow our faith. I will say that again. Patriotism can sometimes overshadow our faith, and I think we're seeing that pretty heavy right now. We're confusing the two. I think we need to ensure that our love for our country doesn't compromise our Christian principles. What do you mean, Ben? Well, I'm going to tell you what I mean, because I just feel like today is the day that I'm going to just kind of blow the lid off of everything. Just because you disagree with somebody doesn't mean you shouldn't love somebody. I think it's Tupac Shakur, and I think I may have used this before, but he's a great theologian if you really study him. I'm kidding. But yeah, he says something wise. He said, just because I don't like you doesn't mean I don't want to see you eat. I just don't want to see you eat at my table.
Yeah. Who said that?
Tupac.
Tupac did. There you go.
But he said that, and I think a lot of times with this patriotism and faith, like, we so much have to agree with our political allegiance that we forget who we're called to agree with first. And navigating that is going to involve prayer and reflection.
So what role can the church play in commemorating a Memorial Day and support veterans and their families?
All right. You're really getting me.
I know it.
I'm going to say some things that, again, people aren't probably going to agree with. Churches hold a special service. Hold a special service thanking these people, thanking their families, provide support groups for veterans who know people who have passed away, and engage in outreach programs to veterans who are on the streets struggling in our communities because of the things that they've seen. Side note, don't have all the veterans stand up in the room for a round of applause. Don't do it.
So Ben, is that even like on Veterans Day, like this Sunday around Veterans Day too? Because I'm going for a lot of churches here. A lot of churches, some
don't have all the veterans stand up in the room for a round of applause. Don't do it.
So Ben, is that even like on Veterans Day, like this Sunday around Veterans Day too? Because I'm going for a lot of churches here. A lot of churches, sometimes we, that.
I think Veterans Day is fine. Veterans Day is fine.
Okay.
Veterans Day is okay. I think we maybe one day we'll tackle the word veteran and we'll give you the Disney definition, and then I'll give you the real world definition because they're different. But I think the Veterans Day is fine. Even Armed Forces Day is fine. This is the day that you don't, because the people who should be standing can't.
Sometimes we, that.
I think Veterans Day is fine. Veterans Day is fine.
Okay.
Veterans Day is okay. I think we maybe one day we'll tackle the word veteran and we'll give you the Disney definition, and then I'll give you the real world definition because they're different. But I think the Veterans Day is fine. Even Armed Forces Day is fine. This is the day that you don't, because the people who should be standing can't.
Yeah. Oof.
So I shouldn't either. I won't.
Man,
I know I'm probably going to get flack for it.
That statement right there. Wow. That kind of messed me up a little bit, because it's true.
Listen, it's important. We've got to teach people the lessons of what a sacrifice is, what service is, what gratitude is, so we can truly honor these things and they don't become part of like a show. We say thank you so often to things, but we just nonchalantly say thank you without really taking it in what it is. And we can be disrespectful along the way. So that's why it's important to have these values that we've talked about, so we can make a profound impact on our relationship with veterans and the communities.
Yeah. So how can we live, excuse me, how can we live out these values, sacrifices, service, gratitude daily as followers of Christ?
Like I was saying before, be intentional with everything that you're going to do. Be intentional with the way that you serve others. Be grateful in all circumstances. We know how hard that is, but that's what we're called to do. And remember the sacrifices that have been made for the freedom that we have to do those things, both earthly and spiritually. And I know a lot of people here are going to be like, well, stick to the spiritual world and the spiritual talk. But I'm going to inform you of something, that the freedom that you have to live that spiritual life is because of people who are willing to die for it.
Yep.
Somebody died for you to be able to do this thing that we're doing right now, to be able to talk about God, because there are countries still to this day where you can't do that.
And there's missionaries around the world that, even if they come home sometimes, we can't say where they're at because they're in sensitive countries, and it could really do some detrimental harm to other people. So there's still a lot of places where they can't, and we live in a country that we can, because of the sacrifice that men and women have made. So Ben, any final thoughts though, or reflections on the significance of Memorial Day?
Listen, it's a day to honor, reflect, and teach. So here's my challenge to everybody. When we think of Memorial Day, let's not just make it a one-day thing. Let's remember that there's a family still grieving, a family who has to live through this day and the day that person passed every single year. and let's do our best as citizens in the communities that we're in to rally behind them and support them.
Well said. Well said. For our listeners, are there any resources you recommend for those wanting to learn maybe more about Memorial Day from the Christian perspective?
There's a ton of books out there. Everybody's got their cup of tea of what they like to read and how short they want to read it. They want a cliff note. So I would say, listen, I would go to there's many Christian veteran organizations. Type it in your URL or go to your local library. Listen, there's a librarian at your library, if you don't know this, that went to college to help you.
That's right. You have to, like, I know to run some libraries, you got to have a master's in librarian.
Like they are ready and willing to go.
That's right.
Decimal point on point.
So how can listeners get in touch with organizations that support veterans and their families?
Yeah, so this is a big one, and it's kind of close to me too. Look for veteran support groups. That could be within churches. A lot of churches, I encourage you, if you haven't already, start a veterans group. Watch how many people show up, and watch what happens to the men in your group, men and women in your groups. They'll become better for it. National organizations like the VA are out there to help. And churches and outreach programs are there as well, like I previously stated. And I will also say this. Not just when there's national organizations, there's also a lot of local organizations. You can walk into a police station and ask for help, and they'll tell you where to go. I had to go get a new title for a car that we recently bought, and I was looking for the local veterans place for some things that I needed help with, and they were able to point me in the right direction. So all those little local places have answers as well.
Well, thanks, Ben. We've had a great discussion here today because I've asked a whole bunch of questions today. If you couldn't tell, I asked a whole bunch of questions. You always claim I'm the pastor, so pastors ask questions. So, but great discussion. Hopefully, all your listeners found it meaningful and helpful. Until next time, live with purpose and gratitude.
No, and I think today's the day that I'm willing to answer all those questions. So
that's right.
Hey, I'll take it. Listen, if you want to follow us, go to Instagram and follow us over there. Ben_Atkins LYL. Ryan, you are RK Workman 85. And listen, here on YouTube, we need you to do us a big favor. Click subscribe, hit the like button, hit the bell notification, share it with all your friends. If you have ex-girlfriends, if you have an ex-girlfriend, share it with them. Share it with them. That's my challenge this week. Share it with your ex.
That's right. Okay, there you go.
We'll see you next time.